Please join Pastor Joe in his interview of those who studied the sermon series Building a Healthy Church.
So today we've got Julianne Rivera and Bill Lloyd. Both of you, you're pretty new to the church, and you've been here for a couple of years already, I guess, and part of the community. And as you are as well. You live here, but you also, I think in Jayuya, is it? Utuado, all right, good. So we just completed this 12-week series of an 11-part series called Building a Healthy Church, where we did this not just on Sunday with the sermons, but also in small groups and in prayer groups. So the first question I ask everyone, and I ask you, is when you heard the term or the topic, building a healthy church, what came to mind? What did you think first?
Well, I thought that's the type of church I like to attend. I mean, I don't want to attend a sick church, right?
Right.
So that made a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right.
For me, it was interesting because we hear a lot about building a healthy body, building healthy habits, and that's like not the movement, but that's what you see in social media and when you talk. I'm from psychology, so I kind of hear always do better and be better, and it was really interesting to see it applied on the church because I've never seen that in a church.
Yeah.
I've never seen like a week-long sermons, and that it focuses just on one theme.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was really nice to see it.
Yeah, picking up on what you're saying is, I mean, it's and what you're saying also, because we talk about, making sure we diet well, make sure that we exercise. Everything's about health today because we want to extend our lives, and not just extend it, but have a quality life. Well, that's true also for the body, and and it's interesting because Jesus said in the Gospels, he says, "I didn't come for the healthy, I actually came for the sick." And so for me, it was about being that healthy body that Jesus wanted to come and minister to, right? Now, it's interesting, some other people said to me, well, I wondered if we were sick and we needed to have this sermon, or is it just like a checkup? For me, it was a checkup. You know how you get an annual checkup or you do a financial checkup, whatever checkup you do, this was a checkup for us to say, are we really focused on what really is essential for the church, right? So kind of all of what you're saying fits into the topic. Now, how difficult was it to grasp that concept, healthy church?
I didn't think it was difficult at
No?
all.
It
It
didn't?
makes sense to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it wasn't. It sounds like you guys picked it up right away and you related it to something. You said, wow, I want to be part of a church that's healthy. And you were about, wow, that's the theme, about healthy body, healthy mind and spirit. So that's wonderful. Now, what makes, in your opinion, this is your opinion now, not a biblical opinion, what makes for a healthy church? When you think of a healthy church, what do you think defines a healthy church for you?
So I think it comes down to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the people in the church, it's the relationships you have together. It's that whole feeling of, is this a place where you can feel welcomed and loved? I mean, that's really, to me, what makes the church healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, other things, the building doesn't really matter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
matter. It can be whatever it is, but that's what really makes the church healthy. You don't want to be in a church full of backbiting or hypocrisy or anything like that. And a church that doesn't have those things and has good things in place of that, that's what makes the church healthy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how about you,
Yeah, I
Julia?
agree. I think having a good community, it's like really important because from my experience, one of the reasons that I left my other church was that I didn't feel that community. And I was just, when I started coming here, I had the thought that it's so important to be in a place, in a church where you feel that community, because it's gonna uplift you
Mm-hmm.
to be able to search more for God and be closer and have conversations that bring you closer to God. So I think that's really important to have a good community, but also, like he says, where you feel welcome. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. If your purpose is to serve God, you're welcome here, and I think that's really important for a church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true, and then what you just said is important too. But I think it's also equally important for the persons who come and maybe aren't ready to serve yet, but they feel accepted, even if they're not ready to serve, because that's what the community is, right? People who are very mature in their faith and some who are not, and they're all searching for, where they are in that faith journey, and to know that you're accepted and welcomed, even if it's not. But I'm glad to hear that, because the title of our church, or the name of our church, is Palmas Community Church, and if we're going to be called community, then certainly we need to make sure that we're living that out. Now, of the 12 or the 11 topics, and I have them right here, so I want you to see them. When you look at these topics, okay, which is the one that you think stands out to you the most, and why?
The all by itself principle.
Mine too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Why is that? That's interesting. Okay.
Well, I think it's because that's where a real, good community comes from. It comes from all by itself. It's the word gets sown, and then it comes from the people of the church. It comes from God acting through the people. It's not coming through the administration of the church. It's not coming through like a church secretary or whatever.
Excellent. Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. How about you, Julianne? Why the all by itself principle?
Mine because I think that although we trust God, we a veces como que queremos las cosas como nosotros decimos,
Right.
como nosotros pensamos en el momento que nosotros pensamos, y como que para mí ese sermón fue como que you keep praying on it, but it's gonna happen all by itself when God says so. So don't worry about the timeline, how it's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah, when I first heard that, I thought, just like you guys, pretty much we're on the same page. I felt the stress come off, because I don't have to be in control.
Right.
I don't have to make a timeline. I gotta do these 5 steps or these 10 steps, and if I do, then this is gonna happen. This was simply just plant the seed and let God do his thing, right? And it'll happen, as you said, in God's time, how God desires to do that. Interesting. Why is this topic, do you think, so important for the church? And when I say the church, not just Palmas Community Church, but the evangelical church. Why is this topic so important for the church, especially today?
You mean the all by itself principle?
No, the building a healthy
Building a
church.
healthy church.
That whole theme.
Well, it's important throughout history and for all churches, not just the evangelical church. But, what it comes down to is you get structures in place and they tend to ossify for various reasons. And, people have various motivations for doing what they do. And if you really do have a focus on being a healthy church, a lot of that falls away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the danger, right? And we see that, you see that in the biblical text, right? You see the Sanhedrin, for example. Right, so the Sanhedrin was the Sadducees and Pharisees, and there you have an institution that was produced that was supposed to be serving the people and serving God, but that's not what it did, right? And they were definitely not following the all by itself principle, and I think you see that a lot in what Jesus says. One of his teachings, I forgot exactly where, he says, the Sabbath is made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's another
Mm-hmm.
example
Mm-hmm.
of how these things can happen. So I consider it to be it's a fundamental principle of what a church is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you move away from it, you become something that's a church in name at least, but may not really be a church.
Right. So it kind of takes us away from the rituals and the traditions becoming the doctrine. It puts us back into the doctrine of God's word, as opposed to the rituals and traditions deciding whether it's a healthy church. In other words, the traditions being we always do this and we always do that, or we've always done it that way.
I think it's even more than that. So I would say it actually moves from doctrine into living.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? Because you can have very sound doctrine that people know and that people say they adhere to, but you don't get a really healthy church out of that necessarily.
Okay.
So I think it becomes essentially living the word, or you could consider it be living doctrine, but it becomes living. That's I think the key.
And Julianne, you kind of alluded to it before. Why is this topic of building a healthy church so important for the church, regardless, not just by Palmas Community Church, but the church in general?
I think like Bill said, sometimes we get focused on doing things certain ways, and on maybe we are humans. Like the church is a place to search for God, but we are sinners, and we are humans, so it's gonna happen. Even though we follow God, we are gonna get misled in some kind of way, because that's just life. So I think like what you say, a checkup, like we are a church, but we're not perfect, so we need to get checkups to see where we're failing, where we're doing well, where we need to, we're focusing too much on this, let's focus more on this. And so we can be a better church, because it's not perfect, it's not gonna be perfect if we don't like test and try, if we don't make changes, if we don't check up. And I think what you say about check up, that's really important, because it should happen in all churches.
Yeah. So tell me, what impact, and I'm gonna ask you from the perspective of small group, what impact did it have on a small group that we're small in size compared to the church, of course, and by design. What impact did it have on a small group, if any?
Well, I think studying this theme, I think probably, helped with the small group, but the small group, I found it to be a place where you got to know people, and it was time well spent, right? It was like, that was very worth doing, and I felt like we had a very good dynamic in the small group.
Mm-hmm.
We treated each other well, so that would be an impact that I would think has happened. I'm not sure I would necessarily ascribe it to this particular topic, because that's what should happen in a small group anyway, but I'm sure this topic helped.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Julianne? What impact do you think it had on the church in general? Our church, Palmas Community Church.
Yo creo que en como que mirarnos a nosotros mismos y como que analizar, porque pienso que como que hemos podido ver tal vez cosas de diferentes maneras, o ver que tal vez como Bill thought that is this a sick church? Like, it doesn't have to mean that it's a sick church, but to think about where we are doing things well and where we're doing things wrong, and not just as a church but individually, helps to build a good, healthy church in the future.
Yeah. I think that the picking up on what you just said, both of you, I think it took the focus off of the big picture and allowed us to focus on each individual of where I am in this whole building a healthy church, being one of the parts of that church. And then I thought it also brought unity, because it gave us a focal point. Everybody was on the same topic, the same theme. Everybody was focused on how do we make, PCC a healthier church, and not that it's sick, but how do we make sure that it's the kind of church that God desires and designed for us. And so I think it had a great impact, and certainly the impact, it just didn't come just from the sermons or from the study itself. I think it came from the openness of the people to embrace it. Even if at first they didn't get it or understand it or couldn't really grasp the concept real good, they still embraced it and just said, let me just go through a process, and then realizing, wow, this is about a checkup. So again, I just want to thank you guys for being here and just taking the time to do this interview. I know that when people hear it, they're going to connect with it, and they'll be able to relate to it. And hopefully we can spread this message to other churches so that we can all, as the body of Christ, do the checkup and see how healthy we are.
Thank you for watching. And remember, you can catch all the sermons from this series on Palmas Facebook and YouTube under Pastor Joe Ramos. Palmas Community Church is open to all in and outside of Palmas. We are your oasis on the journey.